All right guys, we are back on the Jag today, and it is a much bigger job than the last video. And for those of you that are new to the channel, this is my 2009 Van Pla that I bought about a year ago as a non-runner. And I have basically been going through, doing all the maintenance items, any surprises that it may have had from being a non-runner to get it mechanically sorted. And on this week's episode, we are doing a full front suspension overhaul. So we have new Arnott front air struts, we have new upper control arms, and then we have basically the lower control arms, end links, front sway bar bushings, and a pair of brake rotors that are all going on. And the reason I'm doing this overhaul is two-pronged. One, I have an air suspension leak. I suspect it's from the front driver's side. Ever since I've had the car, it felt like the damper inside the air strut was broken. It would be very wallowy and kind of sink. And then more recently, the suspension has been kind of deflating, and it shows like that side is actually going down faster. So it was time to put a pair of Arnotts in the front. Kind of funny, it actually already has a pair, but I suspect something's happened here and one of them's failed. So we're gonna be putting those in. And then the other piece, I have a little bit of a wheel vibration, some under braking, so that's why we're gonna do the new brake rotors, but equally, and I'll show you here in a minute, basically the outer tie rod ends are extremely worn out. And I thought, you know what, as we're taking all of this off anyway, it's only a little bit more work. We can get the control arms done at the same time, and we'll make this good to go. So with that, let's get started. So excuse my kind of grubby engine bay. The car has been sitting for a little bit, just being busy with the Land Rover project that you guys have probably seen. But step one, we're gonna undo the strut bolts up here, or nuts. There's 4 of them. I think they're 13 millimeter. We're gonna get those undone. We're gonna undo the airline, and we're gonna also get, I guess we can do it now, unplug the little sensor here that goes in the top. So we're gonna get these undone on both sides. This will allow the air strut to come down. And once these are done, we'll raise the car up, and then we'll get stuck in on the suspension in the wheel well. All right, job done. Let's get this car up in the air, and we can get started on undoing the suspension. So step one, let's get the caliper off, get this old rotor off. Okay, so not too bad, 215 millimeters. And for me, I kind of had to pry the caliper off because I had a big lip on the rotor, but it is off, gets us some better access. Next up, I'm gonna do this tie rod end. As you can see, it is pretty bad, and I'm guessing that is probably the reason for some of the shimmying I was getting in the front end. So back here, a little hard to see, but I'm gonna crack the nut here just a little bit so I can undo this. Then we'll get this undone. May need a ball joint separator, but then we'll be off to the races. Really hoping I hit play on that. Not 100% sure, but it's out. And I think this gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. Very, very sloppy, and a non-existent boot, and very dry in here. So I'm actually gonna put the replacement that I have on for this so I can lock the nut back up and basically not risk it going out of alignment. We will get the front end aligned, but this will get us pretty much back where we started. As the camera's rolling, let's just get this done. Yep. That's where we're going. And we'll tighten that up properly once this is reinstalled. This is where we get to choose our own adventure story. Think for this, I'm gonna actually start at the top, get this upper control arm disconnected. That'll allow the whole knuckle assembly to kind of rock forward. And I think that will help us when we're dealing with these lower control arms and sway bar end links as well. Okay, so knuckle is disconnected. Don't need a press for this. Actually doesn't feel too bad, which is good. I am probably going to work on this lower ball joint as I have good access, and then it should make it nice and easy to get the remaining stuff out here. So we'll start with the impact, see if that gets us going, but getting the knuckle out the way gets us the space we need. So. Well, it came off. It's always a good start. I think we're going to need the ball joint separator, so let's just whiz this back down by hand. This is to protect the bolt, the stud, and ball joint separator. These definitely work a lot better than the fork style ones. I think in the US often referred to as a pickle fork. I'm not a big fan because they tend to destroy just about everything. And I know you're not supposed to use an impact on these, but here we are. That was really on there. There she goes. All right, we're off. Okay, a little bit of a weird angle, but we're on the lower control arms now. Here's our sway bar. I'm going to take the end link off. You kind of have to do that so that you get enough play to get the strut out, which I guess you can't actually see me holding. But anyway, we're going to work on the sway bar end link. We'll get this guy out, probably do this one first. On mine, which is an 09, hiding back here is our ride height sensor. You want to be careful of this before you start yanking on suspension arms, because obviously if you break it, your front ride height's going to be all messed up. If you have an early car like an 04, you actually have one on both sides. There she goes. We are going to get this guy off. These actually also look pretty good, but you know, we'll inspect it. So we'll start with the lower, get it out the way. And then we are left with one bolt for the strut. Kind of interesting. This looks to be the wrong bolt. Okay. Okay, you find me under the front bumper. I did take the under trays off just for better access. This is one of the control arm bolts. You can see I used a paint pen to mark exactly where the alignment is in 2 spots, so I can put it right back where it was. But we're gonna get this undone, and then you basically push the bolt through into the subframe, and then you'll be able to get this control arm out. All right, there she goes. It was 18 millimeters for those that are interested. There we go. And she's out. All right, well with that, we're basically left with the bolt on the lower part of the strut. So we've got that. I will say the ride height sensor I've had to disconnect in a non-traditional fashion, and once I get this control arm off, I'll show you guys. But like I said, it looks like someone's been in here before and there's a little bit of funny business going on. Looking at how this is behaving, I think I'm actually going to take the control arm off with the strut, and then we'll have to deal with this on the bench. So this is the other control arm bolt. Again, you can see I've used the paint pen to mark the alignment. We're going to get this thing undone, and then everything should come out as an assembly. Okay. Try not to catch a strut to the head. All right, guys. This is going to be the entertaining part, I think. Here we go. And it's out. All right, well, next up, let's lower the car down and we can start the reassembly process. The step one is going to be put the new front strut in. Okay, let's give this a try. All right, so we're going to tuck up under here and basically line the strut up. There she goes. And always the tricky part. Get a couple of these nuts started on the top. Have our nice new Arnott in the front. Already have our outer tie rod on, which was the main culprit for the issue. Decided to leave the sway bar end link on. Actually, this thing is in good shape, so no need to do anything there. Upper control arm, nice thing is it's an OE Jag part, and the ball joint on this is perfect. So I had thought these were bad, but it seems like it was just the tie rod. And then when I look at the bushings in here, they're fine. Obviously the preload's all set still, so to me, I don't see the point in swapping this out with an aftermarket one if this thing's good. So really the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna get this lower control arm in, take a little bit of fiddling to get that in, and then we'll get the bolt in with the strut as well, and we'll be well on our way. All right, so nothing torqued up yet, but we have lower control arm in with the bolt through. This is one of the eccentric bolts, so you know that adjusts camber and things of the such. As you saw, I marked everything before I took it out. So yeah, control arms in. Really next, technically we have our sway bar that we can mess with, but we're not quite there yet. I'm going to probably at least start with our ride height sensor. I did point this out, that someone had definitely been in here before and one of the bolts wasn't even in the whole way. So we're gonna get that bolted in correctly. And then from there, we need to secure this arm. Equally, someone had put a spot of weld on the clip, which meant I had to Dremel this off of the old arm as well. All right, so overall that went okay. You can kind of see under here. It's a little hard to see. Let me see if I can get you guys a little closer here. I put a little zip tie through the eye at the top. This is where they had decided to weld it. I don't think it would have come off, but to me that was just a little bit of extra added security. So next is going to be kind of like the thrust arm that goes in the front here. So let me grab that and we will work on getting that installed next. All right, so thrust arm is in. This bolt's just loose. It's gonna stay that way. Some of the Eagle Eye viewers might notice these are a little dirty, the arms I'm putting on. Backstory behind this, I have a really good friend that has a lovely X358 XJR, and they were chasing a little rattle in the front end. And yeah, they replaced all their front suspension thinking that would resolve it, and it didn't. So all these arms are all OEM Jag and actually very low mileage and in much better shape than what I had. So they're just gonna get reused here so they don't go to waste. So I think with that, I'm gonna try and get the hardware in now for the sway bar. Oh boy, guys, you can tell it's been a long day. Eagle-eye viewers might see what's going on here. This is where the sway bar end link could go. Obviously not gonna reach. I think I accidentally picked up an old arm to install it, one of the used ones. So I actually have the replacement right here. I'm not gonna walk you guys all the way through it, but what I can show you, if you look here, this is the sway bar. It's supposed to go down here at the bottom. So basically, I took the old one from the other side, and it's not only on the wrong side, it's upside down as well. We should be going in like this. So, all part of the fun, I guess. But I'm gonna get this swapped out, and then you'll find me back here once we're back at the same spot. And we're back, and it's like nothing ever happened. Apart from now you can see, look, the sway bar end link went straight in. So yeah, pay attention to that. Don't get confused. Anyway, let's get this knuckle on, give it another shot. So we'll just slot this up. Get this started. There we go. We need to get the top of the knuckle upright assembly basically up into where the upper control arm is. As I mentioned earlier, it's got preload on it, which it's supposed to. That's where they want the bushings locked. But what that means, we have a big gap. So we're going to do this. Reason being, this will basically raise, yes, it will raise this whole upright assembly up probably a good inch or so, which, you know, gets us 1 inch closer to basically what we're going for with the upper control arm. So we're going to do this for a minute. We're not going to torque it yet. I'm going to basically torque everything once we have everything reassembled. Mainly just because I want to make sure we get everything where it needs to go. But there we go. So that's good. All right, I'll show you guys the trick I came up with to do this, where you don't completely destroy your hands. So I got a ratchet strap. What I did, basically hook it on the upper control arm and come up the other side. There you go. Latch it on here. You can basically start like this. All right, and what I found is basically you can just ratchet this the whole way down now. So, and it honestly doesn't take very long. So I'm not sure if you guys have other tricks to doing this, but I found that this worked quite well. There we go. There. Kind of like we did with the lower. Let's just get this. There we go. So that's nice, and then you can just disengage the ratchet strap like so. There you have it. So next, almost final step, will be the tie rod end. So Take a couple goes to line it up. There she goes. So there you have it. But I did disconnect the ABS sensor right here, so I'm going to get that plugged back in. Don't forget your little spring clip as well. Because we're putting a new brake rotor on, need to press the piston back a little bit, just slowly. I don't think these need to go back very far, but for peace of mind, I'm just kind of resetting the caliper. There it goes. So it's back in. Brand new rotor. Quick spritz of brake clean, protective stuff off for it being stored. Now let's get this caliper on. There she goes. There she goes. Ooh, snappy today. All right, well, let's get everything torqued up. We're gonna start with the upper ball joint, which is right around 65 foot-pounds. There we go. All right, well, pro tip, if you're doing this job, torque the lower ball joint before you connect it to the upright. Plenty of room to get a socket in there and torque wrench. So just thought I'd share that, make your life a little bit easier if you're doing the same job. All right, so next up we're gonna do this front part of the lower control arm. I've got my marks all lined back up. And now the fun begins, because I think we have to do this up to 125 foot-pounds. There it is. All right, next we're gonna do our tie rod end. All right, so sway bar. So this should be 32 foot-pounds, I believe. Here we go. All right, we're gonna do this last guy up, 55 foot-pounds. There we go. All right, so this is everything. Here, here, here. This is done. Sway bar end link done. Outer tie rod done. And obviously up here, upper ball joint done. One last thing to do is just the brake caliper. So I'm gonna get that torqued up and then we should be good to go. And last on our to-do list are the sway bar bushings. So kind of tricky to get to actually. You can kind of see it hiding up here. And actually the best way to access these is going to be from the top in the engine bay, but I thought I'd show you from underneath the car because we're a little bit closer. So this does require quite a few extensions to get down to this, but we'll get the car lowered down and then we can get started. And the common symptom for failed sway bar bushings is a rattle in the front end. So if you do hear that, that's really where I would always recommend starting. It's funny, it sounds a lot worse than actually it is. You know, you'll look at the sway bar and it kind of looks fine, but as those wear, it just really communicates a rattle right through the body of the car. So you find us in the extremely dusty engine bay. That bolt right there is one of the bracket bolts, and then right in front of it, right there, those are the two that we need to get to on the driver's side. All right, so I have the bracket out. To do this, I actually had to remove a little brace. So let me show you where that is. So I undid the bolts on each side and moved that out the way, and it gave me much better access to the hardware for these brackets. And it's certainly not the easiest to see, but here's our sway bar right here, and you can kind of see the silhouette of the bushing. It allowed me to kind of snake the wrench down, and then I could get it on the head of the bolt here. So now we're left with the task of getting the bushings off. All right, guys, well, they're out. They definitely look old, so glad I'm doing this, even though it is a little tedious. I thought I'd show you the way I found getting these out, because they're pretty on there, but I found a method that kind of got them out relatively easily, so let me show you. Here you find us in the wheel well again, but basically you can reach in through here, and I just pulled it towards the outside of the car. Because of the bend in the sway bar, it actually forced it open, which is good because it's been fused together like that for, you know, over 10 years. And then, yeah, by the time I got it over to this piece, you could just easily pull it off. Now for the fun part, we got to do everything in reverse. So we're back in the passenger wheel well, and we're going to do our best to get this bushing slid on the way I explained. So we have the bushing kind of clipped over. My goal is to kind of work this up the sway bar like so. But now you can push it through. Really the goal is just to get it. Yeah, there it goes. It needs to go a few more millimeters inboard, but that'll be exactly where the old one was sitting. All right, so now we're on the driver's side. Again, have this clipped on, you have a little better visibility on the side along the sway bar. There it goes. And up and around. That's very close. So it's kind of hiding in there, but you can see it sitting on the pad again on the subframe. All right, guys, well, it is the next day and we are back finishing up the sway bar bushings. I am not gonna lie, these things have really fought me. I did successfully get the hardware back in. I thought, let me, now I've got this done, show you what I had to do to get this done. I will say, I believe this is really something you only have to do if you have the secondary air injection, which I believe was only added to these cars in 2008 and 9, in specifically non-supercharged versions. Biggest thing, and you heard me say it before, really access has been the issue. Not being able to get a wrench on this at a correct angle to get these in. But let's go over to the car. I'll show you what I did. It was not what I wanted to do, but it was the only way to do this correctly. You find me here in the engine bay, and you may recall that we did have the air intake removed, but what I've had to do is actually remove the upper and lower radiator hose to get the access. And you can see here, we still have these other transmission cooler lines that are somewhat in the way, but we have much, much better, you can see the bracket down there with the hardware, much better access to get a wrench on these. I was running into an issue with the hose in the way. Every time I tried to start tightening these up, they were trying to cross thread, and I was not about to play that game. And then, although it doesn't look much better on this side, by removing the upper hose, you can actually see there it is right there. It's a little blurry, but you can actually see the sway bar. I can get my hand down there and could actually get these done as well. So yeah, wanted to show you guys that. Hopefully this is a useful tip if you're doing this job and you have the secondary air stuff. For those that don't know what it looks like, this contraption right here under the water neck is it part of the system. We have these hard lines that run across the front of the motor here. And then equally, you can kind of see this little vacuum line. This is something I actually had to replace because mine had totally crumbled. Yeah, all this mess in the way just makes it next to impossible to really get a wrench on this in a way that I was comfortable tightening these up. That being said though, they are done up, which is awesome. I am now going to work on getting these hoses back on, and then we can actually finish up the kind of reassembly of the project. The one other thing I did do, and I should call out, is I actually decided to undo the sway bar end links from the control arms. It allowed me to basically have free reign of moving the sway bar wherever I needed. Again, I was just having a real issue with the bolts. As soon as I started to tighten them, they would tilt over and start cross-threading. Something to do with the way the thread is kind of set in the subframe. By having full range of motion with the sway bar, I could basically take the load off of the bolts completely so that I could get them in there without them cross-threading. So I'm gonna get these hoses on. We've obviously got to get coolant in the system again. We're gonna have to bleed it. And then I got to put those sway bar end links back on. But at that point, we're pretty much done with this job. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm really thankful to be at the finish line. All right guys, well, one of the other steps we have to do up here in the engine bay that I didn't address while we were putting the suspension back together, we've got our airline And we have the sensor for the air strut too that need to go in. Before I do that, you may have seen on some of the other video, I'm just taking a few minutes to try and clean up the engine bay. It's just super dusty in here, something I've never even addressed since purchasing the car, and just want to take a few minutes to get the road dirt and dust from many years of use out of the way. So we'll get started with the cleaning. It'll just take a couple minutes, and then we can start with getting the air hose and the plug-in, just so you guys don't forget that if you're doing the same work. All right, well, you saw that didn't take too long. Looks a lot better. I'm slowly just gonna work my way through the engine bay over time to get this looking more like this. You know, it's a good practice for anyone that does their own wrenching, things like that, because honestly, it really helps you catch leaks and things of that type of nature when you're doing these types of projects. And I just taken the check valve out. They put a spare air fitting in here and it was in a little tight. So we're gonna just kind of clean all this up. It's coming out now. So we'll put the check valve back in. You wanna make sure these are sealed in there nicely too. They do have an O-ring, so anywhere air can get out is gonna give you an air suspension issue. I generally recommend giving these a little spray with soapy water once everything's done, just to check for leaks. I think with this guy, we give it a little twist. There she goes. So we're clicked in there. And this, I am gonna take a minute. I have a new O-ring on this, so I'm gonna kind of swap them out. And we should just be able to roll this on again to mitigate any damage. And now, let's get our airline. And we want to start the process of threading this in, like so. And then I've just got this 12mm wrench. And you don't want to crush this thing down, you want to make sure it's tight, obviously, so you have a nice seal. But we are dependent on the O-rings. So there we go. So I'm gonna do this on the other side, and then actually I think engine bay wise we're pretty close, but we do have a couple of tasks underneath the car, so I'm gonna raise it up and I'll show you what's left. The one part I did not put back, and maybe it would have been easier to do from the top, is this bar. So I think I told you guys it had to be removed to access the sway bar bushings. I'm gonna go around the other side and grab it. There we go. All right, well, we got it in. If you can see, I'm gonna point to it. Those two bolts right there, done up, and same on the other side. So yeah, it's a little tight in here, but you can do it, get the bar in from underneath. Probably would recommend doing this from the top before putting the radiator hoses in, if you don't forget like me. And the last step on reassembly, that's going to be putting the sway bar end links back in. Like I told you, I disconnected the sway bar completely. So I just gotta put those through the control arms, and then I think we're pretty much back to putting the fender liners in and popping the wheels back on. I will say I'm actually gonna take a minute, rotate my tires as I have the car in the lift as well. But then I think we're at job done and we get to test how good all the work was. So let's get these end links in. Here's the end link, just put the bolt back through. Click. And now on to the fender liners. Wheels are back on, rotated. Put the under trays back on, so looking good down here. That means it's time. Gotta put her on the ground, start her up. All right, guys, well, it seems this project took a few zigs and zags along the way, and right as we were finishing was no exception. So I started the car up, suspension appeared to be behaving itself well, but we ran into a problem. Let me show you what's going on. And here we have one of the auxiliary cooling hoses. It goes from the auxiliary electric water pump to the thermostat housing. And that's right, you see it right there. It's got a hole in it. So basically what happened with me having to remove the upper and lower radiator hoses in order to access the sway bar bushings, when I put those back, that hose got pushed up against the serpentine belt and I did not notice. So I started the car up and it pretty much instantly cut a hole in that hose. So right now I am waiting for a replacement hose to come in before I can actually get the car on the road and do some serious road testing. I also know it's been a couple weeks since I got a video out to you guys, and I'm really doing my best to get these out on the weekly basis for you. So we're going to wrap today's video here. You were able to see what's involved in doing a full front end overhaul on the Jaguar X350, X356, X358 platforms, and really things to look out for to get it perfect, get that exceptional Jag ride again, remove any squeaks, rattles, things like that. If you are new to the channel and you found your way here because of the Jaguar content, you're in luck because there's always plenty more of that coming. And if you like cars like the ones behind me, don't worry, we have some big projects coming on these very soon and they're gonna be featured on the channel as well. So I highly recommend you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and definitely drop me a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this project, things that you may have encountered yourself. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.